Hello friends, this is Growl. In this video, I'm going to be going over the recent Blizzard Blue Post, Development Update, The Road to Shadowlands. In this post, Blizzard officially responds to the community on some of the more pressing issues. And by far, the most pressing issue is Covenants, and I'm really interested to hear what they have to say about it. Blizzard has been making changes and listening to feedback, but hasn't made many general development statements recently. I'll be reading through it and sharing my first impressions and thoughts on what they have to say about Covenants. I'll be sure to leave a full link to the post in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. Let's get started. Covenants are the centerpiece of Shadowlands and have been the subject of passionate discourse across the community over the past weeks, which has been mirrored by discussion and debate within our team. From the system's first conception, selecting a Covenant was crafted to be a weighty decision, shaping a character's abilities, cosmetic rewards, and access to an endgame story arc in Sanctum systems. A weighty decision, almost by definition, comes with some amount of stress, whether anxiety about making the wrong choice or just evaluating pros and cons and wishing there was a way to just get the best of both worlds. In designing this system, we've done what we can to minimize the burden of regret. Those measures should be fully enabled by next week's beta release. While picking a Covenant at the end of your journey to max level is a weighty choice, it's not a permanent one. If you find that, whatever the reason, you are unhappy with your initial Covenant pick at level 60, you will only need to return to Oribos and immediately switch to a different one. Now, if you later wish to rejoin a Covenant that you have left, that is slightly more involved. There is a path to redemption, consisting of a series of 2 weekly quests to atone for breaking your vow and to rededicate yourself to that Covenant's cause. These quests are now available for testing in beta. They're still being tuned, but the intent is that they are largely ceremonial rather than feeling like an arduous grind. Shadowlands is trying to create a kind of choice that you have to make. The biggest and most obvious problem with choices like these is that there is inevitable balance updates and patches that may turn a correct choice into a wrong one. There's also a possibility that you make the wrong choice yourself, either on purpose or on accident. These things won't really be an issue with Covenants though, so that is a relief. Or is it? You'll be able to change Covenants, and especially your first switch to each one will be quick and painless. The amount of grinding that you have to do to even switch back is pretty minimal, and it's mostly just a matter of time waiting. I believe the way that it works now is you have to wait for the weekly reset to switch, so they're gating 1 switch back per week. The problem they are making, though, is the same mistake they did with Azerite armor in the beginning of Battle for Azeroth. They're offering you a choice, and then wanting to offer you a failsafe so that you can switch back. However, the failsafe is annoying and makes gameplay less fun. It seems like having this failsafe might be the answer, however, it completely shifts focus away from what the system is designed for. Instead of feeling like you're a Venthyr mage and you need to make things work as a Venthyr mage, you think, I'm a mage who has to be Venthyr right now, but next week I can switch to Kyrian so that I can get Glad, and then in 2 weeks I can switch to Necrolord for the Mythic Plus push week. There's no meaningful choices here, it's just chores and time gating. I think if Blizzard wants to make Covenants and choices work, they need to do one of 2 things. They need to either make them changeable at any time like a talent row, or never allow switchbacks so that it really is an actual choice. This might be a bit of a hot take, but I think people would enjoy it more. We have also taken steps to ensure that a player who switches Covenants, as well as one who reaches max level later in the expansion, never feels permanently behind as a result. Renown measures the strength of a player's connection to their Covenant and is the main vehicle for unlocking additional soulbind powers and various Covenant perks and rewards. Players primarily earn Renown via weekly quests to gather anima from across the Shadowlands, and to rescue souls from the Maw and restore them to their rightful place in the Covenant. If a player has missed any of these quests, however, they can earn Renown directly through a range of activities like dungeons, world quests, and PvP until they're caught up. This system will be functional on beta in the coming weeks. In short, a player who regrets their Covenant choice and who wants to change their mind should be able to do so straightforwardly at any point during the expansion, and will be able to reach a state with no long-term drawbacks or disadvantages compared to someone who has been in that Covenant all along. This is a great clarification. A lot of people were worried that they would allow you to switch back and forth, but there would be a lot more grinding. It seems like in general, if you're trying to keep up really closely, on progression content or cutting edge dungeons in the first month or two, it matters a lot that you're doing this grind. But other than that, it'll be something that will naturally come and you won't have to worry about it too much. We've also heard from many players who, rather than being worried about regretting their choice, would prefer that they do not have to choose at all. But they've advocated that we offer such a way to switch among the various active abilities offered by Covenants without friction. Before starting an arena match, engaging a raid boss, or entering a dungeon, a character in Shadowlands can change their spec, talents, PvP talents, legendary items, equipment, active soulbind, and a chosen path within that soulbind. When it comes to customizing your loadout, the set of tools that you're going to take into a given encounter, WoW offers more options than ever before, and you can almost entirely reshape your character on the fly to suit that moment. But as malleable as these choices are, none of them, other than perhaps your spec, define your character. They aren't who you are, but rather what you happen to be doing at that given moment. The problem here is that people who are saying they want Covenants to be swappable aren't saying that there's a lack of loadout options. They're saying that they don't want to have to make permanent choices regarding player power. I think this is the most important part of the argument, and where Blizzard is behind a bit here. World of Warcraft has been designed as close to the line of action RPG as you can get. It's almost not even an MMO anymore. The open world is instanced, there are no servers really, and you can freely phase between zones and even opt out of world PvP. I don't know if it's fair to call World of Warcraft an MMO at this point, and you know what? That's fine. I have a ton of fun playing the current game right now, and a lot of other people do too. WoW has slowly moved from a heavy, time commitment game with a bunch of grind to a completely fluid experience where you can easily play different characters, roles, and content types. This is part of the reason WoW has been successful for 15 years, and why people continue to play it to this day. Sure, there are definitely a subsection of people who want more MMORPG aspects and meaningful choices, but let's be honest, they're probably not playing much retail WoW right now anyway. They're playing classic WoW, whatever the next hot Korean MMO is, or waiting on something like Amazon's New World. Blizzard has to realize that they're cutting into their current existing player base and hurting people who enjoy the current game more when they make changes like this. Over the last few years, the game has been designed to cater to people who want to switch between different builds, specs, and content types, and not feel like they are disadvantaged. None of this is to say that development on Covenants and their powers is finished, or that we are not open to further changes. Far from it. We understand that when we offer a choice between competing packages of strengths and weaknesses, if we're not careful, especially given social and community pressures, weaknesses can easily overshadow strengths. The satisfaction of having an edge in one type of content doesn't make up for the frustration of being excluded entirely from participating in another. But while tearing down the entire system may seem like to some the simplest way to avoid that pitfall, we're committed to working with the community to ensure that players feel viable regardless of their Covenant choice. If you really want to go Kyrian on your rogue, but can't justify it because every guide currently says that the Necrolord's serrated bone spike is too good to pass up, or if an otherwise appealing Covenant has benefits that seem irrelevant in PvP, those are exactly the sorts of imbalances we want to fix, and your feedback is essential to that process. In the coming weeks, we'll be doing numerical tuning, making changes to underlying ability designs when needed, and potentially leveraging Covenant-specific conduits if a Covenant needs some targeted shoring up to ensure that they're viable in a particular type of content. As our combat team shifts its focus primarily to tuning, we'll be rolling these changes out to beta servers ASAP for further testing and iteration. I would love to be on board with what they're saying here, and on paper it sounds good, but in practice it falls apart. First of all, the most glaring problem is their target. Their target is players feel viable regardless of Covenant choice. I think this is just an unobtainable goal. Even with a magic computer that can confirm that all options are the same output, players will never feel that their choice is equal. On top of that, there's absolutely no chance that Blizzard can achieve this goal. Mythic Plus dungeons, PvP, and Raid are all incredibly different content types, and Covenant-specific abilities and soulbinds need to be designed with all three in mind. With the complex depth of options, there's no way these things will be balanced on live. If you have any doubt here, just open your talent tree of whatever spec that you play the most. I'm sure there are plenty of talents that almost nobody has used for years. With any recent system like legendaries, talents, essences, azurite, and so on, there has always been a best choice, and Covenants will be no different. On top of this, given how much time I've spent on the beta, I have very little faith that they'll even come close to balancing these. I'd love to test the conduits and give feedback on the Covenant balance, but the conduits don't even work. My characters have been breaking since day one of beta, and it's been like that for everybody. The game is scheduled to release in less than 50 days, and nobody can even test the conduit and soulbind trees reliably. On top of that, with the current state of beta, everybody is running around with 20 sockets and Cataclysm spell power equipment. Although I do think the fault for that is mostly on Blizzard for not creating a good testing environment. Sorry if that was a bit ranty or rambly. It went on a little longer than I wanted and it was a little more negative than I wanted it, but if you made it this far, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be keeping you guys updated with World of Warcraft, Shadowlands beta news and updates, along with guides and walkthroughs when the game is finally released. Happy keying!